In this video, I continue my adventure in moving my music from Finale to Dorico. I'll show you what didn't import right and how I figured out how to fix it, learning Dorico along the way. This time around, I started doing a large-scale work, as I need to start getting ready to move my Fourth Symphony into Dorico so I can finish the last movement by the deadline. I hope you find this useful and it helps you in your adventure in moving your music from Finale to Dorico.
Okay, so I decided it was time to try and do an orchestra piece, moving it from Finale to Dorico. So I decided to do When a Last Tree Has Fallen, which is orchestra and two vocal soloists. It's fairly straightforward, doesn't use too many modern techniques. It has some interesting rhythms and a lot of 2 against 3, and I still thought it would be fairly straightforward. So one of the first things I noticed after I imported is issues with the dynamics, and I think that's related to Finale. You attach them to a note and then you move them kind of where you want them. And in Dorico, they get attached to a point in the grid that they have. So my swells ended up looking like this when they came imported in, and trying to drag them to where I want them or move them is difficult. And then if I do it via engrave mode, I can move them, but then they're actually associated with the wrong place, so it doesn't play back correctly. So what you ended up having to do is go in and actually delete them, and then get your little grid going up again and move your cursor to where you wanted it in the grid, then adding it, and then it looks right. But it kind of means I'm having to go through and do all of these again, which is a pain in the butt. I had some other little things go squirrely, like this here, where it has a suggested last note for the fall, not a required last note. And what I did was do that with parentheses and sort of a Q size note. So that didn't come off, but that was relatively easy to fix, to shrink the note down. All I have to do is select the note, open up the panels, go to Scale, select Q, and then it will shrink it. So that's not too bad, just doesn't come across. And then you gotta switch to engrave mode so that you can move these, and then you can get these in proper place. Okay, so a little bit of a hassle, but not too bad. But so I see I had all this to do, and again, as I was scrolling through all this, I started to see this, and I noticed all these parts where I had 2 against 3, so I had 6/8 against 2 here, just did not line up anymore and looked pretty off. And the more I scroll this way, the more I find it's off like 3 measures now, and just everything sort of just messed up. Okay, so I open it in MuseScore, and while it doesn't quite do it exactly right either, it fills in the measures, so that this isn't really 2 against 3. The time's wrong. But the one advantage is it doesn't screw up the music thereafter. So, if I scroll down and come back to the point, then all the measures are lined up afterwards. So again, it seems to be difficult, I guess, for most software to import this 2 different time signatures, which I guess is sort of common in some modern music, but maybe not common in general. But at least MuseScore doesn't mess it all up. So this is another case where bringing it into MuseScore first and then bringing it into Dorico might be a better answer. So in Finale, I'm pretty easy for me to set
2/4 against 6/8.
here, and it keeps all the measures in the right place. Works well. But what I found is in Dorico I had to remove the 2/4 and set up the duplets, and then I had to move all the music past this point where it's all scrambled to get it all to line back up, so that I've got everything in the right place, which is a bit of a effort there, but doable. And so I finally got everything back together, and now the trick is figuring out the method for making this back into a 2/4. And my understanding is I need to do like a pickup measure here. Let's see, that changed it for everything. So supposedly there's a way to change just this. So let me go research again how to do this. Okay, so I figured out the trick I was missing here. So I don't know where you would figure this out, because it's not very obvious from the interface. But what you do is you bring up your time signature here. We are going to say 2/4 minus 3, like I said before, to sort of create this fake measure of 2/4 with 3 beats in it. And then the trick is you have to click Option, Enter, and then it will only affect that staff. Okay, so then it all gets scrambled again after that. So you have to go back to this measure then and switch back to 6/8. But again, you need the Option Enter key, so it will only affect that staff. And there you go. Now I have this. And then what you do is you need to go in and hide a bunch of stuff. So first thing is to hide this guy. So you open up the settings and you hide that. Then you go through and you need to hide all these numbers. So you go to the number and you sort of turn that off here, and you go in and you have to do that everywhere. So you can do a couple at a time there by clicking, and then you've got what it's supposed to look like. Okay, and you have to continue on, and then here you've got to switch it back to 6/8. You have to go back to the M. Okay, and now you see it switch back to 6/8. So you just continue along and hide all these guys. And then you've got what I originally had in Finale. Now the downside is this is actually also in the marimba part. So, oops, that's all jacked up. But anyway, so you have to do it again there or just copy everything. Now, another issue I ran into was this, where this is kind of what got created for the tempo I have here, and I think these are all just like text as opposed to an actual tempo marking. It is supposed to be quarter note equals dotted quarter, which is equal to 70. Again, this is something MuseScore does right, is this, which is quarter equals dotted quarter equals 70. So they can do that. Now it turns out this is something Dorico can't do. So if I bring up the tempo and I say I want a quarter equal to a dotted quarter equal to 70, it can't do that. It will not. And I've asked the people at Dorico, and they said, yeah, we can't do 3-parters, so the only thing you can do is this, which basically works, but it's not as clear as what I originally wanted. So if you want to fix this to where it looks like you want, you have to then do it by creating text in front. So you can bring up the text field here and then switch this to music and then right click to insert music text, and then you can select this guy. That looks really small, so let's make him bigger. And then we need an equal, so we'll get an equal in there. That looks really big, so let's make that smaller. Alright, so that looks like it's probably close, and then you have to go to engrave mode, and then you can, put these together so that they, and there you go. That is what I originally had instead of whatever this was on import. I really wish software wouldn't dictate to you so much that you have to do it their way. Like I said, it won't let you create a 3-stepper here. I mean, this could be very good for clarity, but they won't let you do it in Dorico. So you have to fake it. It's frustrating. I don't understand why Dorico always thinks it knows better than the actual creator. All right, now another thing that's been driving me nuts is the rehearsal letters. They're only up at the top. And on a big score like this, I like to have them in a couple locations to make it easier for the conductor to find it. So I look at the settings, and there's I can change a few things, but there's nothing that will let me just set it to more locations. Though there's a couple of nice things. Well, scale, you really can only make it smaller, but you can do a custom scale and make it bigger, and that is nice. Of course, you can't see it. There we go. There's no way I can figure out from just the UI on how to do this, so I had to do some research and then found, and what you got to do is go into the layout options and go into Stavs and Systems, and then System Objects. Okay, so this is defined as a system object. And then if you want to put it in other places, so I can do strings, and let's say pitch percussion and brass. Let's see, that's probably fine for this piece. And then yeah, see, there it pops up in more locations. And so that's good. Um, it's just so hard to find that from the interface. It's like the only way you can figure out how to do things is to do research. The UI itself does not tell you these things. I mean, there doesn't even, if I go into here, it says rehearsal marks. There's nothing even mentioning system objects. How do I equate that this is a system object? Even when I go to a system object, it doesn't tell me what is a system object. UI is just not very clear. So it is a lot of guesswork and even more research, which just wastes so much time. But I am happy that at least I got this the way I want it. I finally have the A's in multiple places. A couple other things I noticed is the triplets, they had brackets, and there doesn't seem to be a way to set those as slurs for brackets. And so you end up having to go in and turn the bracket off, and then going in and putting in the slur like that. And of course in Finale, they actually have a a slur triplet option, and it sort of breaks breaks the slur with the triplet over it kind of nicely, which is kind of what I wanted to recreate again, but I had to do it like this. Despite all these issues I have in import, there are some things that I think I like a lot better. There's one I definitely like a lot better, and I thought I'd go over some of those. So one of the other things I have to change is all the percussion. So when the percussion comes in, this particular piece has lots of percussion. It has timpani that also doubles on rain stick and 3 different mallets. This percussionist plays a lot. This one plays 2 different things. So there's a lot of percussion going on this plate. And in Finale, you can just switch the instruments in the line as you go, using the different playback and channel type settings and different staff styles for what you need, basically to build all these out. But none of that translates into Dorico. And they have a system that is more conscious of these are players, and then under those are their instruments. In order for this to work, I have to go in and change all of this stuff and basically build it all out and fix it. Because none of this really works right or plays back correctly, because none of this matches up to what Dorico thinks, except for maybe timpani. Mallets does, but it just picks one instrument and uses it over and over again. And even then, it's not what really Dorico understands. So you kind of have to rebuild your percussion. And what you end up doing is selecting all sorts of new instruments under it. So again, this is the player, and these are the instruments that player plays. So as you can see, you build out quite a bunch. And then what happens is if you go to this mode, it'll just switch and automatically and stuff. But really, if you go into gallery mode, that's where you see all the instruments at once. So like this is all percussion 1, and these are percussion 2, and the mallets, and the timpani. And then when they switch, you just put your music on those different lines, and then Dorico collapses it all. So in some ways it's a bit mixed for me, because this certainly makes this mode a lot harder to deal with because how much bigger it is, and things get all compressed and they never really look like they do in the other mode. But it's a great way to see all the percussion and to figure out who has to play what. So my feelings about this are mixed, but I think in the long run, I'm going to like this more than I do right now. I've ran into other issues with it that agitate me, but I think in the long run, this is really good. But this, again, takes you a little bit of setup work to put everything in, then move all the notes, because all the notes are here, but you then have to copy and paste them and move them into the different instruments, and then, everything works. So it's a bit of a task, but it's not like a hard task at all. And then you can get everything to look the way you want it. And it's pretty good. The other thing that I just love, I think this is something where Dorico completely nailed it, as so much better than any other software I've used, particularly Finale, is the cues. Now, Finale did have automatic cue creation, but it put it in the score. So I almost always had to create another file and have one that I would make the instruments on, and then the other one, so I could keep the cues out of the score. Well, that's exactly what Dorico does. So I have these little flags. Sometimes these things drive me nuts because they're everywhere in the place. But in this case, it's really good. It lets me know that there's a cue here. And if I switch to the oboe part, then I have the cue. So the cues only appear in the part. And that is perfect. That's exactly what you want. You really don't want your score just covered in cues. It just confuses the conductor. And, these are true cues. They're not intended for like maybe a middle school type situation where the music, you may not have all the performers for the music and some players need to play cues. In those cases, you may want to leave them in the score, and I don't know if there's a way to do that, but I kind of assume that there would be. But really, all you have to do is click in the measure you want. Then you can use this cue creator. You say create a cue. You then put the instrument that you want the cue to come from. So in this case, flute. And bam, it made the cue. And then if we go to the mallet part, then we'll see there is the cue. So that is really good. I really like that feature. That is definitely one where Dorico really nailed.